ESPN's Dan Orlovsky was on Wilde and Tausch and gave some thoughts about the Packers, and I have not listened to this yet. I think it's, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. So I'll give my thoughts and hear what Dan Orlovsky has to say. Dan Orlovsky is one of my favorite, I guess you call him, media personalities to watch. I really enjoy his opinion, just especially when it comes to quarterbacks, considering he was, a former NFL quarterback. So let's listen to this. It was posted on the ESPN Milwaukee YouTube channel on Wilde and Tausch. So here we go.
It transitioned so well. Was it just the development of the wideouts, or what did you notice from about week 8 on? Because I think I heard you this morning say Jordan Love has played as well as any quarterback in the league the last half of the season. What were the big things that he improved on?
Yeah, so Jordan specifically was his mechanics and staying more connected to the ground. And so what happens when Jordan was coming out of school, you saw this remarkable raw talent, but the raw talent never develops unless you give it a foundation. And what I mean by that is you get so mechanically sound because there has to be a mechanical and fundamental element of sports in any position, no matter how talented a guy is. I've talked about this with Patrick and Josh Allen, Lamar. So Jordan's talented, but flawed. And so the best part was the Packers gave him the opportunity to work out that flaw. And he's not working out a flaw that developed over 6 months. He's working out a flaw that developed over a decade, essentially playing the position. So you give him the time sitting behind Aaron to do that. And then you continue to make it a focal point. And then over that period of time, you think you get it figured out and fixed. And then all of a sudden, bang, you're in real life games. And you're trying to run for your life and make decisions and win football games, and you start to revert back to bad habits. And his bad habit or his flaw was he would stand too straight up in an unathletic position, and he would bounce instead of kind of like graze the ground and keep his feet almost at the top of the grass, because then you're never in position to either move as quickly as necessary or deliver the ball. So you saw the work that went into the 3 years, and then the work that went through the first half of the season of continuing to strive to better that in game. Okay, so that got better. Not perfect, but that got better. And then the second element was you saw those young receivers develop as well. And really one of the turning points was as those the Packers offense became a really difficult offense to match up against if you wanted to play, let's say, man coverage. You had to have 4 or 5 pretty darn good cover people, because when Watson was healthy, you had to play, a guy that could play him in man-to-man, and then a guy that could play Dobbs physically enough in man-to-man, and then a guy inside with Jaden and Wicks, and then the tight ends. And so you had to have people to match up, and then teams realized, the quarterback's starting to play at a high level, and we don't really necessarily match up. So they started to see a lot more zone. And when this offense is humming and you got a quarterback and a coach kind of seeing it the way this offense versus zone defenses, you could just gut them in the play action game. And so I think those are probably the 2 biggest reasons why, one directly Jordan and one attached to the people on the outside that got it to take off.
So first off, I've been thinking recently, he talked about Jordan Love, the opportunity to learn behind Aaron Rodgers. There's no doubt that was pretty impactful, crucial for his development, and I think it will continue to pay dividends going forward for his entire career. And it makes you wonder, considering Dan Orlovsky was talking about lots of those flaws that he had in college that have been built up just over all of his years playing football. If he had gone into a situation where he didn't have that opportunity to sit for 3 seasons, would Jordan Love have reached the heights that he's reached so far really early in his career after his first year starting? And I think that's pretty debatable, because let's say he goes to a situation where maybe halfway through year 1, he's asked to come in and be the starter. Who knows if he would have, had those mistakes and his, certain way of doing things cleaned up enough. He could have played half a season. He could have had a really bad year. The team could have said, you know what, we don't think this guy can do it. And so I think that it was such a perfect position for Jordan Love to be in. And it even makes you wonder, how many other quarterbacks, if they had been drafted into situations like Jordan Love was drafted into, sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 years, would have ended up having successful careers where instead they didn't really have time to fix some of those flaws that they were able to get away with in college, but then at the NFL level, they couldn't really get past those things. And I would assume that there's lots of quarterbacks where if they had those 3 years, they could have been a lot better. And so we saw Jordan Love progress, develop, get better, as Dan Orlovsky said, throughout the season, which led to them winning. And then the receivers, I was just having this thought as he was talking about, the tight ends, receivers, and the Packers had so many injuries when it came to the pass catchers last season. Christian Watson, of course, missing a ton of games, but then even Luke Musgrave going down later in the season, and he missed a good amount of games. And so if this Packers receiver room, tight end room can stay healthy, I think that we're going to see really great things from this Packers offense, because when Luke Musgrave was out there and playing, starting to get things in check and playing well, he's almost like another receiver out there. And so the Packers have so many weapons, and that's a nice thing about it too, is that even if you have injuries, when you have so many weapons who can get it done, you're able to really withstand those injuries, and that's the importance of depth in the NFL. Some teams, they may have one or two good receivers, but if one of those guys goes down, it's sort of tough luck. The Packers have 5 or 6, and so I think that's a really, really good thing for the Packers. Let's finish off here.
Dan, if you ever do get into coaching, the Packers have done it the right way. Aaron sat. Would you sit guys, like if you were the Bears, you're going to have a ton of pressure to play Caleb early. There's a huge benefit to sitting. How would you balance that? Is it just going to be, how would you do it?
Yeah, I have become such a big believer on the sitting 9 out of 10 times. Now, I often say it's very individualized, and the biggest thing you have to figure out is the young man mentally tough enough to fall on his face every single Sunday, because it's just the reality. And does that negatively impact his long-term development, be both on the field and the ability to go be as good as he possibly can as that leader?
That's a very good point. And as I was just talking about, Jordan Love sitting for 3 seasons, especially in today's day and age with social media and how quickly, fan bases can turn on a player who's struggling. And at times, I think that owners and GMs can sort of fall to the pressure of fan bases, because at the end of the day, you want to keep your fans happy. And where maybe, 30 years ago, when social media wasn't really even around, you could probably get away with guys taking a little bit longer to develop. I wasn't, around 30 years ago, so I can't speak on that. Maybe you guys who were can speak on that. But, there's so much pressure for QBs specifically to be successful quickly. And so if you have one bad season, people sort of view you in that light. And as Dan mentioned, can you mentally handle that? Because if everyone's doubting you, everyone's looking down on you and thinking that you're not a good quarterback if you had a bad season in your first year. If you start to believe that, it probably sort of messes with your mental toughness, all that kind of stuff. And if you aren't believing in yourself and you're playing more scared and not really trusting what you can do and what you've done in the past, it's going to be hard to find that success. And so I wonder, when it comes to J.J. McCarthy on the Vikings, I'm pretty sure I've seen that they currently have Sam Darnold as a starter, and it's probably smart. If I were the Vikings, probably start out Sam Darnold, maybe at least let him play half the season, then bring in J.J. McCarthy later on. Maybe let him sit the whole season, and even though, if Sam Darnold were to start off poor, the fans would probably start wanting to see J.J. McCarthy, but it really is about long-term success. The Packers have always focused on long-term success, and because of that, the Packers have been able to consistently have top-tier quarterback play, because I think lots of organizations and owners aren't really willing to, when you're in that sort of championship-type window, which, the Packers have really been nearly every season for a long time going into each year. Are you, as an owner, willing to draft a quarterback like the Packers did Jordan Love? Instead of drafting someone who could help you that season, the next season, the Packers were willing to draft Jordan Love and wait 3 years and not see any kind of payout. But now it seems like, if Jordan Love continues what he's done, the Packers are going to receive, they're going to be successful for the next 10, 15 years if Jordan Love, his career lasts that long. And so at the end of the day, it was worth waiting 3 seasons of being patient, where maybe people didn't want the Packers to be that patient or to draft Jordan Love. At the end, it ends up working out. So let's hear the rest here. But
I've become a bigger believer in the sitting. One, because it's kind of similar to what I just talked about with Jordan. When you take these guys that are flawed, because they all are coming out of school, and you put them on the field, their number one job and goal as a player is to compete and win. And that's hard to do anything and everything it takes to win and develop is almost impossible to happen at the same time. Number two is, what are the expectations of our team and our organization and owner? That has to factor in as well. Do you believe that we are a 3-year development team, or do you want me to win right now? And sometimes that's an unrealistic viewpoint in the NFL. And then the third element is, are we good enough around this young man to not just destroy him both physically and mentally? And I think the third one is probably the one that teams skip over and look past far too often.
So when you do rankings, and that's what everybody does in the content business, is there anybody that you would take in the NFC if you're looking at long term over Jordan Love right now?
Oh,
Good question. Let's see what he says.
long term. Okay.
Yep.
At that position, long term. So the guys that immediately come into my mind conversation, Brock Purdy.
Yep.
I think Brock is a very high end player, and he's
I take Jordan over Brock.
obviously in a great place. Jared Goff, I have always been a believer in. When you protect him, he could throw it as good as anybody. I don't know if that's viewed as a long term. I do like that Atlanta signs Penix, but I don't think so. I mean, big fan of Caleb's as well. So right now, I don't think that there's a quarterback in the NFC that I would definitively take over Jordan Love when it comes to the future, let's call it 6 to 8 year window. No, I think Jordan would be the guy. Brock would be in that conversation for me.
Yeah.
All right, that's a great take. I think we'll end it on that one. I agree. I don't know if there's any other NFC quarterback I would take. There's not many other quarterbacks I would take personally over Jordan Love. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. You want more Packers content? Make sure you subscribe, turn on the post notifications so you never miss any Packers news. And I'll see you guys next time.